Hello, this tutorial will cover setting up a MIDI project in Digital Performer 6. Begin by launching Digital Performer from the dock. Choose a new template from the File menu. I'll choose Empty so we can build our project from scratch. Be sure to select the student hard disk to save your file and give your file a name. One window that doesn't open automatically that's handy to have is the Shortcuts menu. We see that here in the Studio menu. This will give us quick access to the different editing windows as we build our sequence. I'll begin by adding tracks that I will use for my sequence. I'll set up some instrument tracks, MIDI tracks, and auxiliary tracks to use with Reason. So I'll begin by setting up a few MIDI tracks. And a couple of instrument tracks. I'll use the general MIDI synth, and I'll use the drum instrument in Digital Performer. I'll also create an auxiliary track to use with Reason and Rewire. Remember that it's important to create your auxiliary track in Digital Performer before you launch Reason if you'd like to connect the two together. So I'll select some outputs for my MIDI tracks to match my instrument tracks. So I'll choose my drum instrument, and I'll choose my general MIDI synth instrument, and I'll wait with the other track until I've launched Reason. Good time to rename some of these tracks. Hold down the Option key and type in the new name. And do a little reorganizing, put my instrument tracks next to my MIDI tracks. Kind of handy. Color code them. Can also be kind of handy, so you know which MIDI track goes with which instrument track at a glance. Okay, now on to adding my Reason instrument. I'll launch Reason. Note that it's in Rewire Slave mode, which means I successfully linked Reason to Digital Performer. Create an instrument. I think I'll use the sampler. And while I'm here, I'll choose the patch I'd like to use. Click the folder icon, select a bank. I'm going to check out the transport, make sure that the keyboard is not selected for this instrument. Make sure the transport section is selected. That way I won't get a double trigger when I play my keyboard. I won't get a trigger from Digital Performer and a trigger from Reason. Okay. I'm also going to toggle the rack by pressing the Tab key and check out my connections here. I can use any of these hardware device outputs. I'll use a different pair just for the sake of this tutorial, and I'll note the numbers I used. I used outputs 5 and 6. I'll be sure to save my Reason file before I go back to Digital Performer. Saving in the student disk. I'll find my project. I'm calling it Setup Project, so I'll save it there. Okay, back to Digital Performer. Now I can make my output and input assignments for my MIDI track that's going to Reason and for the auxiliary track that will receive the signal back. Here's my aux track. Recheck my color coding here. Assign my input of my Reason track to match. And now I can assign the output of my MIDI track that I'm sending to Reason to that Reason instrument. It'll show up in the list. Now we should be ready to start recording. I'll just double check the MIDI input and make sure we're getting sound out of each device. Checking my drum set instrument. It's working. Check my general MIDI synth. It'll probably give me a piano sound. And check my Reason device. I should now be hearing an electric piano.